Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. In this lecture, we are going to look into more specifically the components of your research, particularly your chapter 1 and chapter 2 for your research proposal. And hopefully with this research proposal, and it will eventually turn into your complete thesis or dissertation. So chapter 1 basically is a chapter, an introduction chapter where you provide some background of your research, decide on what is the problem. You look at the gap. What is the gap in the literature? What's missing? Why the problems that you mention as a problem is overarching, is really significant, and who cares about it? And then from that, you come up with your research purposes or research objectives, and you start deciding, actually based on this problem, that is why you need to do this research, and that's your purpose basically. And from that purpose or objective, then you start framing your more specific, doable research questions. And some people put the significance of the research in very specific subtopic, and some even include limitation in the first place, especially for the research proposal. Yes, you can, but at least these 4 sub bullets are the essential part in chapter 1. Then for chapter 2 is basically your literature review, is where you actually delineate, discuss, synthesize your the readings of the literature, what you found so far, and basically come up with the logic idea, the more detailed explanation on why you're doing the research. And for this lecture, we're going to look at the definition of literature review, what is actually literature review is about, why we conduct literature review, how do we do that, what are the mechanisms available out there, and where to locate your research literature, and when we talk about when, we talk about the year it's published, usually the literature, how recent it should be, or is it appropriate to go back down to old manuscript where it is a seminal article, and so on. And for the what else is when we're going to talk about the ethical issues when you conduct your literature review. Okay, just to share with you here, as this is actually my dissertation for doctorate dissertation that I did. This is the final version, the ones being accepted by the graduate school. And here is the table of contents that actually summarizes the introduction and at least the literature review part. We have I have 5 chapters in my dissertation, but here we can see here how I come up with my introduction chapter and the literature review chapter. Basically, the first chapter is all the introduction on my research. Sometimes I provide some framework, theoretical framework, and I describe the problem there, what's missing, what's needed, and then I start describe the purposes of my research, followed by the research questions, and I also provide the organization of the study. Some people come up with that, some people don't. It's up to you how you want to present, but having an organization of study provides some basically clear picture of what your dissertation will provide to the readers. And I also provide some note on terminology. That's my chapter 1 basically. And for the literature review part, it's all basically the important concepts that need to be covered in order to show that I've read enough sufficiently to research on this topic. Um, this is basically a simulation topic, but I try to do it in context, and yeah, trying to bring this in general. So I have here all the concepts from item response theory to English language proficiency and content performance, and at the end, the most important thing is how I summarize all these concepts in the context of my own research for the dissertation. And yeah, this is just to share. You don't have to do this. There are many ways of how you can write your chapter 1 and chapter 2, and this is basically how I did it. Okay, chapter 1, formulating research problem. What is a research problem? A research problem is a problem that someone would like to research, and it can be anything that's overarching, I said, or somebody said like this is really this really need to be solved. There's something missing that everybody needs to know. It's basically, some people call it a difficulty, because yeah, that's a problem, and we need a solution for it, or some changes that to change the problem for betterment, and something that is not just doesn't work well in general. Okay, so basically, yeah, here the summary. Basically, problem is actually what are the concerns of you as a researcher, and then what are the conditions that researchers want to improve, or the difficulties that researchers want to eliminate, and or in other words, questions for which researchers seek answers. So someone will say, how do I decide on the problem? Everybody has problems, but the sources of your problem identification, particularly for your research, academic research. Okay, it could be anything. It could be your personal work experiences, life experiences, or it's actually resulted from a theory, some theory that you think is really interesting, and it really applies to your professional work, to your area of interest. Sometimes when you read a lot on certain topics, basically the literature, you are actually you start to be able to actually see what's lacking, so there's a bunch of research on this same topic, but what's next, or what hasn't been done, something, so any example that you've read before. Okay, and you can also sometimes replicate in terms of the problem. You see, okay, this is in terms of the method itself is some people have done this method, okay, but nobody has done method B, so I'm gonna go and actually delve into alternative methods. So nobody's done method B, so that's the problem for these research ideas. Okay. Also, in terms of you want to how you can come up with a problem, identify a problem, is actually you can replicate a study, a well-designed study done in a different context or different settings. For example, you take a study that's being done in the West and you bring into the context of the Eastern culture, Eastern educational setting, for example, and you use all the designs that the previous research has used, but you actually use in a different sample, different context. Sometimes when a present study that you've been reading, you can see some kind of inconsistency or disagreement, like the results are like, that they found mixed findings about stuff, or some researchers say the findings is such, the finding is pro to that certain problem, or a group of another a group of researchers decide that, okay, we found out different something else. Okay. Sometimes a problem can arise, or can identify some problem when there's a new system being introduced. Doesn't matter whether it's at the very district level or the global level. For example, in context of Malaysia, maybe you looked at new government with their Buku Harapan, and you can go and delve into the book and see, what are interesting ideas, or basically the promises that should be researched deeper. Or even the RMK 11 Malaysian Malaysian plan, the 11th Malaysian plan, or the recent budget discussion, Belanjawan 2019. Okay, elements of research problem. A research problem actually should specify the population who's actually involved in this problem, and who's the key stakeholders. Who are the key stakeholders? Are they students? Are they teachers? Are they policymakers? Who are they? What are the population? And then it also should specify the variables involved. For example, okay, we know the population is students, so now what about students that you want to research? Their performance, their motivations, their attitudes. So those are kind of variables that you have to specify. And most importantly, it should actually be researchable. It should be practical. It can be done given specific times, specific resources, and you have to start thinking about, okay, this problem will definitely bring me to this certain type of research, whether it's qualitative research or quantitative research. That's when we talk about methodology, or when we talk about whether it's action research, types of research, or basic research, or even simple theoretical research. Okay. So when we have a problem, we start coming up with the purposes, and then we can also pose that problem as question, where and this question should be very specific, that it focus in detail to the researcher's investigation. So here I've listed some of ideas or research ideas that for you to think about. Which ones of this, if any, do you think are researchable? Are children happy when taught by a teacher of the same gender? Does high school achievement influence the academic achievement of university students? What is the best way to teach grammar? So basically, among these three, what are which one is can be done, can be framed into research? So think about it. Most of the time when we come up with a research problem, we start with a question, and from that question it will trigger more questions. So basically, when we consider a research problem, we also raise a lot of different questions. The questions are like, for example, is this the type of problem that can be effectively solved through the process of research? Can relevant data be gathered to test the theory or find the answer to the questions under consideration? Is it significant again? Is it an important principle involved? Would the solutions make any difference as far as educational theory or practice? This is a question when we ask, so what and who cares? Okay, and we can also decide whether the problem is it an existing one or is it a new